Hi everyone, welcome to 2022. It's going to be a great year for us all, I know it is. And we're starting it out with a wonderful auction that hopefully will give you pleasures to bring a new doll into your home, or if nothing else, simply to watch these videos and then attend the auction virtually. You can spend 2 wonderful days with your feet up on a comfortable hassock in your home and watch the fun of the auction on our live video, audio presentations. And if you don't know how to do that, call the office and let us make sure you are all tuned in and ready to go. So we call this auction One Thing Leads to Another. And I was talking to a collector, I don't know, a month or a couple months ago. And the collector was talking to me about, she said, well, I went somewhere once and then somebody gave me this old doll and then I looked at it and I it had an interesting skirt on it. And then I got interested in skirts. So then I started looking at fashions and then I looked at something else and then I looked at something else. And it was just like, well, here I am now, 20 years later, surrounded by $300 in my home because one thing led to another. And we decided that that was the mark of collections. When I wrote the introduction for this catalog, I want to read to you what I wrote because I was just starting the catalog and I happened to be listening to an Audible book at night, which I do to go to sleep. And I listened to one where there was an interview with Walter Isaacson, who's the historian who's written biographies of everyone from Ben Franklin to Leonardo da Vinci to Steve Jobs. And the interviewer asked him this interesting question. He said, of all of these people, all through these different generations, different centuries, different backgrounds, is there any one thing that you think is a characteristic that they all have? And he said, without one pause, curiosity. And this is what he went on to say. He said, without hesitation, curiosity. Why things work? What could be different? Why is this like that? And every other question one could ask about any topic is the mark of a genius. You start here. You wonder why. You ask a question. You think of something else. And off you go on a new path. One thing just leads to another. Does that sound familiar to you? Does that describe yourself? Does that describe every collector you've ever known? So I think curiosity makes great collections more than all the money in the world. Curiosity and a willingness and an interest to learn. So we're privileged to be the historians of some of the we're not Walter Isaacson, but we're privileged to be the historians that try to pass on the history of dolls to you. And hopefully in your collecting, one thing will lead to another, and you'll have a wonderful time doing it. So we're going to start with our cover doll and talk about this absolutely magnificent 28-inch English wooden doll I'm going to turn her so you can see her profile, her magnificent profile. And while we're talking and I keep showing the doll around, I'm going to tell you something of the background history of the doll. The doll is known as Princess Charlotte, and she has an absolutely extraordinary history. In 1761, young Princess Charlotte came from Germany to England, where she was to be married to King George III. Now, we Americans know who King George III was because he was the, quote, evil king that made us undertake our American Revolution and seek freedom from England. This was in 1761. She came still many years before the American Revolution. She married King George III. They were married for 57 years. She bore him 15 children. She was very, very active and very beloved in the court. I'm going to tip her down a little bit so you can see her this way. It is said, there have been lots of books written about her. And remember, King George III was kind of a disturbed man, which was one of the reasons why the revolution occurred to begin with, because they really couldn't communicate. He didn't communicate well with people. And that happened. So think about that in their marriage. They had all these children. She's trying to run the court, trying to be kind to people. And she was known, Charlotte was known for being a very, very kind queen, particularly to her attendants of her many children. And one of the attendants of her children was Charlotte Murray. Charlotte Murray was born in 1775, which was just 6 years before Princess Charlotte came to the throne. She was the daughter of the Duke of Athol, and she became one of the attendants to the Queen's many children. She was beloved by the Queen. At some point during this time, Princess Charlotte gave to Charlotte Murray this doll. This doll came from the Queen to Charlotte Murray, who later went on to become a lady-in-waiting to the Queen and stayed with the court most of her life. She kept the doll. It passed on in her family for many, many generations. One of the owners of it during the 1800s was Frances Ida Drummond, who was a very well-known English landscape artist, and she lived from 1897 to 1922. So it stayed in the family that entire time. It eventually passed into the hands of one collector who has owned this doll for several decades and is now willing to part with it. Please look at the costume that the doll is wearing and the detail of the construction, of the way various pieces are put together, the embroidery that's on them. Absolutely extraordinary work. I'm going to lift it slightly so you can even see her little matching slippers. Imagine this doll knowing her history. It's so extraordinary. And you know, because it came from the Queen's court, that it was done by, although unknown, because most of these wooden artists were unknown, done by some very, very prestigious artist or studio. Look at the back of her hat. That's what it really, I don't think we could take a photograph that really captured the wonderful, intricate work on that bonnet, but it is extraordinary. When I turn it around again, my art director, who was putting together the catalog, pointed out to me, he said, Florence, be sure to point out her necklace, because that has such depth to it. It's a very, very beautifully done, I'm sure not a real ruby, but who knows, necklace in a wonderful, wonderful setting. With it came an additional original dress. I'm sure she had many, many more at one point, but this is what we have now, this original dress and this original gown, which is very beautifully done. I'm going to turn it so you can see it in a little more detail. With this wonderful extended train in the back. Very, very beautifully done. Interior workmanship. And then coming around again, and there it is. And also came, this is so great, this wonderful treasure box. Here's the box of all of the pieces that come with the Princess Charlotte doll. We're going to open it up, and inside we're going to look at various things. We have this wonderful embroidered folio or booklet to keep little personal treasures inside. And here, for example, is a piece of paper. I don't know what's on it, but whoever is lucky enough to own it can look for it. I'm going to build for the best for last. Look at this little booklet right here, which has all of the samples of different types of embroidery with the descriptions on them, the different tatting and embroidery and the workmanship. And this was something that was kept all of these years. And then we have this wonderful, beautiful piece of ribbon that is said to have been from one of the Queen's gowns. It's gold leaf work on that. I'll show you the back side as well. Okay, then we have this wonderful little purse with the gilt, metallic gilt embroidery and the 3 little tassels. We have a pair of pockets, and I know how you all love pockets. And look at these. Worn under the gown, so they would secrete very, very precious coins or a key to a lockbox. And this is beautifully done. The homespun with the hand embroidery detail on them. And we have this wonderful early painting on ivory of a lady, an 18th century lady, seated at her desk. We don't know who it is. And finally we do, and not finally because the best is to come, we have an early engraving, And written on the back is the identification, Charlotte, Queen of Great Britain. So here is Charlotte next to her doll. And then finally, in this box, most wonderful treasure, lift it off, little tiny folded piece of paper, which says, piece of the robe of Queen Charlotte's train, 1770. Train, assuming probably the train of her wedding gown. Wrapped up, and where it's been wrapped up there for, what is that, almost 250 years now. Absolutely wonderful pieces. And by the way, did you notice on the hanging from her jewelry is the wonderful blue cornucopia? It could have been for smelling salts, could have been for, I like to think she carried a little brandy in it. So when the day got too much, she sat down and said, I had to take a little break here for a minute. But there she is. I think really the finest wooden doll we have ever had to offer. She is absolutely extraordinary. So I want to show you the second important wooden doll we have coming up in our auction. One thing leads to another. Even though this doll resided in England a good part of her life, her roots trace back to the Obergamero region of Germany, where she was made at the end of the 1700s. And a very, very extraordinary example of an early German wooden doll. And what I want to do is I'm going to lift her wig because I want you to see the shape of her face without the wig on. Very, very distinctive. Let me turn it around so you can see her from the front. I'll turn it this way so you can see her side profile. And then her back. And she has the defined mark of like her chemise, where there's carving at the upper part of her bosom. Very, very distinctively made, a very wonderful doll. So I kind of like her wig on, but pulled back quite a bit, so it doesn't fight her beautiful, beautiful face with that really aristocratic nose. Well, our girl has a great provenance. She was owned by the Hepplewhite family of England starting about 1790. And the Hepplewhite family of England were well-known merchants, drapers, and fabric wholesalers for many, many decades. And this is an example of one of their inventory invoices they did for people who had purchased from them. As nearly as it can be determined, the doll was used originally in their showroom to show the different kind of fabrics they had available, to show the different kind of styles that may have come up over the years. The costumes that came with the doll range from the late 1700s up until about 1830. So really cover about 3 decades of costumes they might have made. Very, very similar to how fashions were presented later on, where new styles would come out. Either the couturiers or the fabric suppliers would have them costumed in a sample of those. So while I keep talking, let me just start showing you some of these costumes that come with her. The dress she's wearing happens to, I'm going to show you some of my favorites. I can't show them all to you. But look at the embroidery detail on this doll, the finest sheer lawn fabric. Absolutely superb detailing with that matching hat. That hat is just such a winner. Look at that. I want that hat. I love it. Let me show you in the back. Oh, in the back you can see through the back of her dress is not fastened completely. So look at her quilted petticoat. Very beautifully done. Okay, stand up tall here, girl. Turn around. Okay, she has a wonderful figure. Now let's see some of her other dresses. This is one of my favorites. I think this is a very early one. And look at how it's made. The sleeves are just sort of attached at the shoulders. So the arm would go through, and the way it was made, the person would wear it, and there'd be the big puffy sleeves up like this. Beautiful, beautiful dress. You'll love studying. Those of you who love fashion will love studying the construction of these costumes. Another one that was one of my favorites, I loved, where is she? Now, let me see if I can find it. I love this blue one. I think this is absolutely wonderful. Look at how this is made with this gorgeous ice blue silk fabric, the handmade lace, embroidered lace, and again, the low bodice with the high cut waist being about 1820 period, and the very puff sleeves, very, very beautiful. Turn it. Notice the differentiation, like the pin dots up at the top and then embroidery at the bottom. This other blue dress is very, very nice with its use of fringe all over. And again, check the sleeves and the cut of the bodice being a high-waisted, so that helps you date the period that these were made. Okay. Let me just keep kind of holding them up and showing them to you as they come around. If you're worried about now, where am I going to keep all of these? This is not a problem. We have them puffed on stands so you can see how the dress of the form, but clearly they don't have to stay on there. And you can keep them beautifully stored as they have been so many years, and this is why they've been in such great condition. Look at the little purple ribbons on there. And in the back, tie string waist, so for good adjustment. Oh, this pink one is gorgeous. I love this one. Look at this, wow. This had to be for a special ball. And just get the detail of the flower, cascades of flowers coming down the hem, or down the skirt rather, to the hem. Very beautifully done. This is a nice early fabric. This would have been one of the earlier ones. Very simple. Looks like a transfer pattern on the linen. I know some of you who love fashions are probably get your little pads out and you're sketching these designs as fast as you can. This is a great one too. Look at this, the use of the ribbons. And I'll show you this one. Notice the use of the browns and the mauves, very, very stylized and of the era. I love those fabrics, okay? We have one here. There are 14 gowns in all, plus, oh, look at that little bow there. I didn't even notice that before. That wonderful velvet flowers on the silk bow. Beautiful. Beautiful combination with the embroidery on the dress. And then a lovely one here. Same distinctive use of fabrics and colors that are used over and over again. Along with the doll comes, and excuse me, I'm going to try to lift it for you so you can see it, this large wooden box with all the hand-painted designs on it. Okay, that's enough bodybuilding. I'm not going to hold it any longer. In which all of the costumes have been stored all these years, and that comes with it. And then what also comes with it is the invoice that I showed you, some various different accessories and things. For example, here's a wonderful little purse, an embroidered purse with tassels, a brown velvet hat. And then, this is great, various pieces of fabric from the original mill with notes on them. This is the ribbon of a wedding bouquet. And this piece of brocade was part of a gown belonging to Elizabeth, wife of Harry Gibbs. That's the wedding bouquet ribbon again. Let me open it up. Okay, and then here's one that says, a piece of wedding gown belonging to Amelia, I can't read it, something. She married Dr. Robert Crossing Thorpe. And so this is a piece of her wedding gown right there. You can see the fabric, beautiful fabric. And there are several more like that in here, each with their little note attached as to what they were. This is great. Little actual garment clothes made for a baby, born 1819. And among the accessories, this wonderful cape. Let me show you the interior construction, all quilted, ready for that cold weather. Beautiful piece. So all of this comes with our wonderful doll right there. We know no more of her background in that she served as the family, call it the mascot, the mannequin, from about 1790 to about 1830. After that, remained in the hands of the family until she again passed into the hands of this one collector about 20 years ago, along with all of these costumes. And I think it's an incredible piece of history. And if I were to become the new owner of this doll, if I was one of you and I would own this doll, I could spend years researching and identifying more about the company, more about trying to see what else I could find out about the history of this beautiful girl with her very, very distinctive, look at that aristocratic nose. Wow, she is a beauty. And there she is. Thank you. We'll hope you enjoy seeing that.